The NBA playoffs are finally here.
Yes! Yes!
Day one of the playoffs was an absolute banger. We got a lot of interesting matchups, dissections, and analysis to get to from all the games. If you want to see my takes and breakdowns of the games going on today, they're later in this video. You can peep the timestamps because I'm a W content creator. That's right, your favorite content creator went through all of the games. So without further ado, let's get to the first series, which this clip should speak for itself, right?
It don't matter. Divorce court, child support, Lou Dort. Lakers in 5. We got that. We got that.
Minnesota takes game one. They say that a series doesn't begin until a home team loses a game. Well, it has officially started.
I think it's going to be very hard for Lakers to win this in 5 games. Coming into this series, a lot of people favored the Lakers because of the greatness of Luka Doncic, what we saw him do against the same Wolves team last year, where he repeatedly just took it to them. But I think there's a lot of nuances that were missed in breaking down this series. If we're doing comparisons to the Wolves team last year that Luka dominated, the Dallas Mavericks had lob threats and multiple bigs where when Luka was in the pick and roll and he would put Jaden McDaniels on his back, that lob threat was always there. So Gobert would have to make a 2-on-1 decision most of the time. Also, I think the Mavericks just had better shooters who could knock down shots and really impact the game. I think the difference this time around is because they don't have too many dynamic players in that way. A lot of this comes down to Luka, LeBron James, and Austin Reeves variants, and the Wolves are just fine with it. This Dallas Mavericks team also play better defense. Like, the amount of size and bigs that they could throw in the series really impacted Minnesota on the other end offensively, which made them look a lot weaker in comparison because of how they were able to play them defensively. But this Laker team, their best technique is having Luka, AR, and LeBron James on the other end, and they have more weak links to target defensively, which causes rotations, which causes double teams, which also puts people out of position sometimes for the rebounding. And I think that the size and the second chance to generate it from that size is really going to be a thing that's hard for the Lakers to overcome in this series. I think the other comparison being missed is you can go back to the Suns series. Now, I do think this Lakers team is better than that Suns team. I do think they have way better playmakers, but to me, they're living with LeBron James. They're living with what Luka Doncic can do. Luka had a phenomenal game, phenomenal game. But at the end of the day, that isn't going to beat you if it is good defense and he's just making it over you. The Wolves are really focused on shot quality, and I think that showed on both ends in game one. I didn't officially put out a predictions video, but the way I looked at this series, the most important players for the Wolves are Julius Randle and Jaden McDaniels. And I said this because for Julius Randle, his past as a player performer flat out is not good. That's why it was a bit harder for me to want to believe in the Wolves to win. And to be fair, LA can still win because of these issues, but Julius Randle in the past has been prone to ill-advised shot selection or decision-making. But objectively, in this type of series, with the lack of size LA has, Julius can create mismatch opportunities. And if the Lakers are sending 2 bodies to him because he's cross-matching on Austin Reeves, that to me is the best advantage Julius Randle can look good in and take advantage of, because that's his specialty, being that bruiser type who can do that. So to me, if you have to send doubles and they have multiple guys who can shoot the ball at a high clip compared to you, and then on the other end defensively, you have bodies and wings to throw at them and you're not allowing them to just shoot wide open threes, you're going to wind up winning the math battle even if Luka has 40 every game in this series. And that's really my question, right? Like, when you put Jaden McDaniels on AR-15, right, in these spots, and AR isn't the same AR he's been at the tail end, this shows, especially when Austin Reeves and Luka Doncic are bleeding value defensively without a really good defensive center on the floor. I just think that the size and the second chance opportunities are going to make them struggle in the series. I think Mike Conley deserves a lot of credit too, because I didn't think he was going to be able to play a significant role in this series because of how much they could try to mismatch hunt. And to be fair, I don't think LA did a good enough job of consistently hunting for him on the floor as much as possible. So his value with this pull-up three-point shooting made a big noise in that first game. I do think LA is going to probably try to make that more of a habit. I also think what they're going to try to do is stop digging as much on Anthony Edwards drives to guard the three-point shooters better. But it's a game of adjustments and runs. And I just feel like this Laker team on a night-to-night basis is going to need to have Austin Reeves, LeBron James, and Luka Doncic combined from anywhere between 80 to 100 points a game for the series. And in the game, when we saw them run a zone, you have to give Jaden McDaniels a ton of credit. Not only was he making threes in the corner, which I guess you try to live with, but more importantly, he was getting it off the dribble, where he would just take the ball to the middle of the floor, use his length and size over everyone else. And because they went small and wouldn't have Jackson Hayes on the floor, he would just rise up, and it was easy. So to me, it's like if the shot quality is going to be that way and they're actually beating the zone, it's going to make it tough, especially when the biggest advantage the Lakers have in this series is the fact that they have much better playmakers than the Phoenix Suns did. They have LeBron James. They have Luka Doncic. If the game is close, the Wolves' offensive decision-making sometimes can really struggle, but the game has to be within those margins. And if you're losing on the glass, if you're giving up more quality threes, if you're not getting out and stopping transition points, if you turn the ball over, these are all areas of the game that will make that final score down the stretch when there's 5 or 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter, maybe out of reach for you to show that difference in your decision making. So I just think that like those other aspects of the game are why I have the Wolves winning this series. I have the Wolves in 6. Truthfully, I had the Lakers winning game 1. I thought the Wolves would win game 2, but the fact that they've immediately stolen home court advantage is a problem. But we'll see how game 2 goes. Phenomenal game. It was a very, very fun watch last night. Shout out to the Minnesota Timberwolves. Let's get to the next series.
It's hard to score when you don't touch the ball. I mean, no offense. Kyle got 2 shots in the first half, both with 2 seconds on the shot clock. So, like, Kuzma can play, but we got to involve him. And we got to make sure we keep him involved.
What you just heard was Doc Rivers postgame talking about how he needs to include Kyle Kuzma more. Instead of a focus on the drop coverage that they were consistently playing versus one of the best three-point shooting teams in the league by volume, where Brook Lopez was getting deep dish flambéed by playing drop in the parking lot to their shooters, where Miles Turner is outplaying him so severely, where Kyle Kuzma got some open shots, did not make them, had 0 points, 0 assists, 0 rebounds. What are we talking about? Kyle Kuzma did not impact the game in almost any positive way for the Bucks in game 1. And that's variance. You got to live with it. It is what it is. Maybe you can run some plays, sure. But the fact that you're the coach and you didn't think about giving him more plays in the game and you're saying it now is kind of crazy to me. I got to be honest with you. But independent of that, that's not what's going to decide the series. Giannis is a great player. So I don't want anyone taking this to think that I don't believe in Giannis. I think Giannis is a great player. I don't believe in the roster around Giannis. And also some of Giannis's flaws, right? Because Giannis does have flaws as a player. But regardless of that, Giannis is going to probably average anywhere from 31 to 34 in this series. And they can still lose because of their lackluster defense, because of the lack of consistent offensive players that they have, and because of the lack of adjustments I think Doc Rivers might not make. I think there's problems with this team. I've been saying it all year long. And I know Dame's going to be back, but to me, Dame might not save them. Let's be honest, right? Dame is a great player. But what I've been sick and tired of since they got Dame is when you point out the other issues in the Bucks offense, the Bucks defense, all these other aspects, people keep saying, don't worry, Dame Giannis pick and roll. Dame Giannis pick and roll. Dame Giannis pick and roll. No. All year long, Dame and Brook Lopez have been a better duo for the pick and roll, really pick and pop, but for that combination, because Brook Lopez has been factually a better screener. Now, Dame Giannis have had moments where it's looked good, but at the end of the day, we have not seen a large sample of Dame and Giannis playing well off of each other. They normally play their best basketball when both of them are off the floors. And I do think Damian Lillard out there in the staggers could help them because they do need more shot making. They do need more threes going up. They do need more advantages being created. But this Pacers team, in terms of how they get to it, up and down the floor in that first half, were bombing threes off great shot selection, and most of them were wide open shots. If you give the Pacers wide open shots, they're going to probably make a good bunch of them on a regular day. And in the second half, those shots started to fall less. I think a part of that was Brook Lopez play less, but also I think their shot selection got a lot worse. And flat out Tyrese Halliburton, who I think had a great impact in game 1 playmaking wise, but scoring wise was a disaster. And it's like, when he starts to make these threes and these shots at a higher clip, what is the response going to be? Especially when, as good of a player as Dame is another player defensively you can take advantage of. So for me, again, I didn't have a prediction video. I'll probably drop one officially sometime this week, but I also had the Pacers in 6 games. And I don't know when Dame's going to play. It could be game 2. It could be game 3, or it could be something Milwaukee is saying to make it appear like he's going to play for competitive advantage. We saw the same thing happen with Kawhi Leonard. He wound up not playing the entire series after that point, right? So I don't know. What I do know is this Pacers team has more variance, has more players who can ball handle and knock down threes at a high level, and Miles Turner is playing terrific defense, at least based off game 1. And I just think that is going to be able to get them through, on top of having Pascal Siakam and how good he was for them last year. So I'm leaning Pacers right now personally. Let me know who you got in the comments. As a Detroiter, it hurts to say this, okay? I am from Detroit. I am going to game 3 and 4 of this series. Pistons Knicks could be a short series. It's possible. It also could go very long. To me, a lot of this really depends on a couple factors. Shout out to Tobias Harris and Beasley. They had a great game. But if we're being objective, Cade did not have a phenomenal performance. I thought his passing was pretty good overall. He kept his turnovers low until the last couple minutes of the fourth quarter. I just feel like he couldn't really get into a consistent shot-making rhythm. And I think the run that the Knicks went on as soon as Cade hit the bench was a huge problem for Detroit in the fourth. And more importantly, Tobias Harris, as good as he played in the first half, was getting absolutely flambéed, royal, barbecue, whatever you want to say, by Jalen Brunson, where he could not stay in front of him. And Detroit just did not have a way to manage in those spots. And then also the amount of shots that Campaign and others were finally hitting in that fourth quarter was crazy. But more importantly, the X factor of the series, Karl-Anthony Towns, played well, knocking down his shots. OG Anunoby was sensational. Did a really good job on Cade and was also knocking down shots himself. Jalen Brunson still finished with 30, even though I was surprised he had 30, but he still did that. So to me, the Knicks' higher end talent is better than Detroit's. And I feel like Cade is going to have to maneuver and play better. It's his first playoff series, so things happen, but these are the flaws in Cade's game that we all knew of. This is not some thing that I'm surprised by. That's why this series is in flux for me, because Detroit's defense to me is better than the Knicks. But Mitchell Robinson was good. He had a lot of impact in this game. So I don't know. It's going to be a very fun series to watch and maneuver. This is Detroit's first playoff series. I think Asura Thompson had some really good moments as well. And it's game 1 and it's on the road in the Garden. It's a very hard atmosphere to win in. I think game 2 is going to be a very, very, very big litmus test for Detroit. If they can split going into game 3, they have a phenomenal advantage in the series. So definitely watch it. It's going to be a great, great time. Nuggets Clippers is going to be one of the most entertaining series in the first round, because a lot of people counted out the Denver Nuggets. A lot of people said that they fired their head coach. Jokic's defense is a joke. It is still. And the Clippers have looked good. They look like a very good team since Kawhi Leonard's come back. Kawhi played some sensational basketball close out the regular season. But at the end of the day, you got to play like it. And I can get to James Harden's play. I can get to Norman Powell. I can get to all the other players who didn't do it. But at the end of the day, this is a game the Clippers had control of the entire game. James Harden was the best Clipper in this game. He was taking advantage of Jokic supremely over and over and over. But the physicality looked like it was giving Kawhi some issues, if I'm being honest. Kawhi Leonard, they needed more from. And this is a player that we have to stop ranking as much because of the injuries, because of his availability during the regular seasons, where a lot of his campaign to being a top 5 player, wherever you have him, is predicated on the way he rises to the challenge against teams in the playoffs. Well, he had a stinker. He was disappointing in that game 1. And this is after having Harden be their most reliable player for most of the game. And I'm sorry, I still have the Clippers. I had the Clippers in 6 winning this series because I felt like they have more advantages they can poke apart with Denver. I still think Jokic's defense was very exploitable in the first half. I think in the second half, they did a much better job of keeping him out of some of those actions. But I feel like the Clippers also just took bonehead shots, and he had 19 turnovers. I'm sorry. Having 19 turnovers versus the Denver Nuggets is one of the easiest way to lose the game when Denver has been one of the best teams in transition the entire year. When Christian Braun's value, a lot of it has been on him being the best fast break player the entire year. So for this to be a game where you're in the game, you have control over it for the entire time, and you are turning the ball over, you're giving them scores in transition, you're not scoring in the half court, and then on the other end, you're not rebounding. Russell Westbrook was so big for the Denver Nuggets in game one, despite all the flack he gets, despite the roller coaster we know him to be, because of his rebounding efforts. Also, big three he hit. That was a phenomenal three. I'm pretty sure that three gave them the lead when they were down. Jokic trusting his teammate, that was a tremendous play. But independent of that, the rebounding gave them such an advantage to get into overtime. And another pet peeve I have with Ty Lue is if you're going to have Kawhi Leonard guard Jamal Murray, Chris Dunn's main value is POA. I get that he's a good off-ball defender, all this, all that, but the offensive value that he bleeds on the other end is a problem. So if Chris Dunn isn't going to be doing his role as a POA, you have to supplement that with, in my opinion, Batum, who's going to give you that shooting value, who's also going to be a gritty defender in spots. If you're going to have Kawhi Leonard swap out. To me, that didn't really make much sense. I felt like a lot of their possessions were weird. I thought there was a play that Ty Lue should have challenged, didn't, and then wasted a challenge on the clear out of bounds play on Kawhi Leonard in the corner with Jamal Murray. So to me, I had a lot of issues with that. The Clippers really controlled most of this game, and Zubac was holding up pretty well versus Jokic. So to me, it's like for the Clippers, that's an embarrassing loss, but they, at the end of the day, are still the road team. So Denver did what they were supposed to do. Game 2, I think, is a must-win for the Clippers if they want to make this a 6-game series or even shorter. They have to handle business there. And I don't think Jokic even had a great game. Now, I know he had 27, 10 and 10, but watching the game in terms of like what we know Jokic to be, Jokic can play even better than that. So if you're the Clippers, Kawhi Leonard, I'm sorry, but these top 5 player talks, this and that, you have to show that and put that on display in game 2 for the Clippers to really cap off this series. And I believe Kawhi Leonard can reach that level still. So I still believe in the Clippers, but for everyone who just thought Denver was going to be some easy fade out team, it's going to still be competitive. And these margins are going to matter. So we'll see how things go. But that was a very, very fun series. With those series out of the way, I do want to point to the games taking place today. I think there's a good bevy of games. I do think the games from yesterday are just going to be better overall based on what we have to pick from. I'm going to start with Boston and the Magic. Shout out to the Orlando Magic. I think Boston wins this series. I just think they're a better team. I think the Magic's offense have been disappointing for the entire season. I think the Magic can definitely put up a fight in some of these games. It's probably like a 5-game series, but tough. But I just think Boston's flat out the better team. I think all year long they've been a better team. They have the best player in the series. They have more depth. They have more shooting. I just think it's an overwhelming advantage to Boston. But I will be watching to see how Paolo can match up in this series. Same thing with Franz, just for the future of their build that they're going with in Orlando. But to me, Boston takes that. We then have the Cleveland Cavaliers versus the Miami Heat. Shout out to the Miami Heat. They needed to win that play-in game so that way their pick wouldn't go to OKC next year unprotected. That was a phenomenal win from them. Tyler Hero has had some moments for sure. Davion Mitchell really stood out the most for me in that play-in game. And seeing how that holds up versus Cavs is going to be big because the physicality piece, I think they do have the size to contend with Cleveland. I just think that the process from both of them is to be seen. But to be fair, Eric Spoelstra is known to be a coach for these moments. I think the Cavs' offensive firepower is flat out better than what Miami has to offer. I still have the Cavs winning this series, but it wouldn't surprise me if this is a lot more competitive than people think. Bam Adebayo has been playing against some of his better basketball to close out the year, so it'll be fun. But again, I think the Cavs are heavily favored in this series. I still lean Cavs. I think they have more depth and guys who can contribute in those ways. But we are going to see what happens with these two smaller guards, again, defensively in the series. So I'm excited for that. Some games might go to the wire. I don't think the Cavs are going to sweep them. I think it's going to be competitive. So I favor the Cavs, though. OKC versus the Memphis Grizzlies. This would have been a phenomenal matchup 2 years ago when the conversations about who's better between Ja Morant and Shea were a thing, or were at least being active. To me, there is no conversation. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander is clearly a better player than Ja Morant. I think Ja is very exciting. He had some very, very good moments in the play-in for sure, so shout out to him. But I think OKC's a better team. I just do, man. I think they have different size, different length. They have the best defense that this Memphis team is going to see. And I think Memphis has a good enough defense to make it competitive. I do believe that, but I just think they just don't have what it takes to really compete with OKC all the way through. I think OKC is the class of the Western Conference. I don't think this regular season was a fluke. I think OKC is legitimate. And I think it'll be fun to watch. I think Ja's going to definitely have some highlight entertaining plays, but I genuinely think the amount of defenders that they can throw at their team is going to be a hard thing for them to deal with, it, especially with no Jalen Wells. So it'll be tough. I expect OKC to really try to make their mark early. I think Chet has to establish himself early in this series as well to get his confidence going for the rest of the playoffs, especially for who they play next in either the Clippers or Denver. So I think that matters, but I think OKC is just the class of the West. I think they dominate the Memphis Grizzlies in this series. Cannot wait to watch this game at 1 o'clock today. So tap it. And last but not least, as a Warriors fan, as you may know, we play the Houston Rockets today. This is going to be very, very stressful. And I say this because a lot of people, i.e. a lot of arrogant Warrior fans, are not respecting this Houston team in any way, shape, or form. I call it arrogant because we've dominated them for a very long time. So to me, like, it's kind of earned arrogance in that sense. But I think the Rockets are going to be a lot more competitive this time around. I think the size advantage matters. I think they have a lot of younger guys who are going to have the legs to go for a longer series. I think the defensive impact they're going to bring to us, this is going to probably be the hardest defense we play in the playoffs that's not named Oklahoma City if we advance out of this round. So I don't take this lightly at all. Amen Thompson is a problem, but I think we can win this. I think we have a very good defense to throw at Houston as well. And I think offensively, we can just get to different levels with our process and our off-ball concepts. I really think these are things we can rely on. And I think we have a advantage with what Jimmy Butler's been able to provide to our team with free throw shooting, his defense, and how he's been able to take over games as playoff Jimmy. I think these are real things that try to match that hold that Houston can have. But it's going to be a tough series because of that. I really think that double big lineup that they can run out there secures many different possessions. And if we're turning the ball over, which, as we know, Golden State has been a high turnover team for many, many years, it's going to be harder for us to win, especially if our offense looks rough. I think Kuminga has to, and when I say this, I mean it, has to play in this series. I think he absolutely has to play in this series if we're to have any type of hope or success moving forward. This matters severely for where we're going to be. I think that's crucial. I think that's important. Also, I think he plays against the Rockets really, really well. I understand people are hesitant because Steve Kerr didn't play him in our playing game or the Clippers game, but I think with more preparation to put him in the right spots for success, I do think Kuminga can play in this series, and I do think he can be an impact player. And more importantly, I think to get to the next round or next series, there's no scenario where Golden State wins the title by just benching Kuminga for the entire run. I don't see that. I think they're going to have to find a way to maximize Kuminga athletically so he can bring more impact in non-Steph minutes, and more importantly, just be a athletic body for us who can rebound and be a variance guy. If you're going to be a championship team, you need to have a 5th, 6th, or 7th man that can come in, be a guy for a stretch that can dictate a playoff game, where sometimes one stretch in one game and one game in a 7-game series dictates who wins the series. We need that in many ways, from B-Pods, from a guy like Moses Moody, from a guy like Buddy Hield, harder to see with him, but specifically from a guy like Jonathan Kuminga. So I'm excited for it. I have confidence in my team. I do think we can win this series. I have us coming out of this series, but got to show it. Gotta show it. I'm excited. And that will conclude my playoff video for today. Appreciate everyone that made it to this part of the video. Spam up them comments about who you got in all these series and whatnot. We'll be back tomorrow with a recap of game 2 as well. We're going to be a lot more active on the channel. Podcast officially, I was able to fix the edits on the second channel. So when we get the podcast uploaded on there, I'll be making sure you guys know in the community post. Make sure to tap into the community post on this channel. But appreciate you. Like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. I'll catch y'all in the next one. Enjoy playoff basketball. If you watch this today right now, we're actually live on playback right now. Playback.tv/giftedhoops. Tap in with me. But peace out. Have a good one. Salute.